bottom and top plate on. 2x2 inch square tubing, 16 gauge for the verticals, and then 1x2 inch rectangular tubing for the top and bottom. Where we're going to drill our holes. I like to use the ugly side where the factory seam is. We'll put that on the inside, or the most unseen part of whatever you're working on. See, I scribed where I needed them and made sure it was perfectly centered, and pre-drilled this first. And I made this box around one of these steel posts because they're all the same 2x2. And then all we got to do, because we labeled this top and this bottom, so match them up. Put your steel in there, and then you're going to line it up like that. So this is what we'll do here. Slide our piece in. Make sure it's butted up all the way to the bottom of your jig. Make sure it's in there good. And should maybe next time if I do this again, I'd leave these ridges a little higher so that I didn't have to mess with this. This is the one we fabricated yesterday. See where all the holes are. And luckily for us, this other gate we're building now is the same height. So we don't have to worry about changing up the holes because we're leaving an inch gap underneath the gate so that it's got clearance. So in case the floor is not perfectly level, you have an inch and it's not too high up. Don't worry necessarily about the hole being a little closer to the bottom for that cable because people's eyes are going to be looking at the entire structure. They're gonna back and check them all. I know I can trust the clamps a lot more than I can trust these magnets, so take your tape measure if you want to check perfect square. Go from corner to corner and they should match. So right here we got 57 and a half. You can see it right there. 57 and a half from corner to corner, and then it should be 57 and a half from here to here. If not, we got to make an adjustment. See, exactly 57 and a half. I haven't seen any videos on this of guys actually using it, but this is the Lincoln. It's the 180i MPDV weld pack, and it does aluminum, it does TIG, MIG, stick, and obviously flux core. So it's a really great machine. I had to buy it because my other Lincoln took a crap on me after 12 years of using it, but it was a great welder and it paid itself off many times. So yeah, the weld pack 180i. So there's the chart inside the welder, inside the door here. It shows you all your settings. So if you guys haven't ever had to read this before, so right here I'm using 025 wire on argon CO2 7525, and so you just follow the size of the wire and what you're using, what gas you're using and everything, and then just follow this down the line to the thickness of the steel that you're working with, which I have 16 gauge here. So it's telling me for 025 wire 7525 argon CO2 for 16 gauge I need to go to F6. So don't always trust that. I went to that yesterday and it got extremely hot, but you know it's going to be somewhere close. So I went all the way down to E5, and they're not a positive stop here, so you can get variables in the middle, which is kind of cool. So in between E and F or closer to F, but it called for F6, and I was like, it's just way too hot. Keep your tip clean, fellas. Keep your tip clean. Clean your tip, fellas. Clean your tip. The reason we're doing this video is because I've never seen anybody make the full steel gate and then show you exactly how to do the cable with the hardware. I've seen them do one or the other, but never both. So 1/8" cable is way easier, but it doesn't show up as well. This stuff is a little harder to turn or bend, but it's a lot nicer. And so we'll eventually show you how to use the cable cutter and the swaging tool with aluminum ferrules to crimp this, and that's going to be on the actual railing system, because this one we're using hardware because it's a gate. We don't want to put turnbuckles on this, that's too much. But for the long runs that are about 20 to 24 feet long, it's okay to use a turnbuckle, especially to save money from that invisible swage hardware that shit costs a ton of money. Don't wait for it to cool down, it's just gonna bend. When I was making that welding table, it was a perfectly flat piece of 3/16, and by the time I was done, even just tack welding it and doing little strips, like 1 or 2 inch strips underneath to weld it to the frame, by the time I was done, it bowed that entire welding table. So it's kind of a useless, I mean, it's a good surface to work on, but this one's even better, and it's over wood because I screwed it down every couple of feet, and this is just 16 gauge steel, but it's lasted me longer and been flatter than that one. So just try to move around your workpiece. I know I can't right now because the shop is busy, but if I could, I would move all over this table so that the heat gets dispersed everywhere instead of being in one corner or one end. Be able to tell when we grind them down if there's any porosity or any kind of holes in there, then it didn't do its job. So that's how we know if we suck or we're okay. And I have to put caps on these, so I'm not even going to weld that part. I'm going to weld it when I put the caps on, and then we'll grind all that down nice and pretty. What we're going to do is let it cool down a little bit. Take it out of the clamps and then flip it over so it's flat. Once we pull it out of the clamps, we'll check to see if it's square again, set it back on a flat surface, and see if it's got any kind of tip to it. This is the Evolution Rage 3. It's the double bevel cold cut steel saw. It cuts through wood, steel, stainless. I mean, I've done everything, aluminum, plastics, everything. It just depends on the blade. They have an all-purpose blade. This is the steel only, the mild steel, but it still cuts through wood. It's a great saw. This is one of the first generation ones. I bought this like 13 years ago, I think, or more. So I need a new one. So Evolution, if you're watching, I'd like to give you a review on your new ones. These are Home Depot swaging tools. Actually, that's the 18-inch. So it does 3/16, 1/8, 3/32, and 1/16. So whatever size you guys are trying to do. The thing about steel that people need to remember when you're doing fabrication work, like if it's going to be painted, you guys have seen it. Most people don't even grind down the welds. They leave them. I like to make it look like it was really poured into a mold. But sometimes you get a little carried away on trying to clean it up, and don't grind through those welds because you'll start to see the seam where you didn't get good penetration, and that's a place in the future that'll crack, especially if you have super hot to super cold climates with expansion and contraction. So just remember that. If your clients don't care if the welds are still there, then just leave them. I never even ask, I just always do it. I leave them in certain places, like always on the inside corners here, because I think that that's just going to give it some more support over the many years that they're going to be outdoors. And then for furniture and stuff, you want to just keep it as clean as possible. And sometimes if you grind through a weld, go back and tack it again, and at least you know that time you're going to get more penetration. I don't always put a bevel. It just depends on what kind of thickness of material I'm working with. With 16 gauge, you pretty much get penetration right away. If it's set to the right settings, you're going to be okay. If you're going to paint something that's steel, mild steel, remember that when it comes from the mill, it's coated with an oil, some kind of protectant so that they don't rust too easy. You want to get that mill scale off. So I like to just keep hitting it with the angle grinder and scuff it up. That way the paint has something to adhere to. For this one I'm using a Duramax from Lowe's. You know, I just wanted to get the best exterior that would adhere to metal, and I asked the pro at the paint department, and that's what the old timer told me. So listen to old people, they usually are right about everything. So now I'll bring you guys back into the shop, and we will get this bad boy finished. And I can scuff up the rest with this 4.5 inch angle grinder if need be. So need be. Just overkill everything that you do, and it will last forever. All the gates that I've done that are this size, these are about 41 high by 42 wide, pretty much. I'm putting hinges that are rated for like 300-400 pounds each, and the gate probably only weighs like 35 pounds. It's nothing. So I know for a fact that those things are never gonna falter. So just think about that kind of stuff too, and overkill it, man. You have no idea how much people, well, you probably do, how much people appreciate when you do a good job. Another thing, nice. See, this is nice and flat on the welding table, so I know it's going to be nice and straight. If you're doing gates or something, like when I said I like to do these things monolithic, you know, if it's going to be something that's going to be out in the heat, I've seen a lot of gates where they don't drill a little hole, at least at the bottom. So, you know, rain can't get in it, but moisture can get out. Because even though you think it's welded completely shut, you know, that stuff is inside the gate. And so it'll blow out the steel. It'll tear the walls of the steel, and it takes a little, you know, years for that to happen. But again, if you want it to last for a long time, for people's lifetimes, then just drill a little hole at the bottom. Nobody's ever going to see it, and it's going to allow for that pressure to be released. So that's just another little tip that I've learned over the years. I'm using 3/16 galvanized cable. Get yourself a decent cable cutter, and I've seen them use angle grinders with a piece of electrical tape. I've seen them use a drill with a torch. There's all kinds of cool ideas, but for 3/16, I don't think I'm going to be using a torch. I'll be sitting with for a while with the drill. You don't need it to go fully end to end on the inside edge. You need them to catch those swages, and you need to be able to crimp them. And so I'll show you how to do that. So these are going to be the pieces of hardware that I'm using. You cut your wire, your cable to length, and then this has a hollow tip. Take that cable and make sure that when you're trying to spin it on, I like to spin it on, and try to make sure that you're not getting any kind of frayed edge. There's always one little dingleberry sticking out that really screws it up. If you can get that on, see? This one went all the way. I'm gonna back it out just about 1/2 inch because I'm gonna crimp it down here. I only do one crimp. I haven't seen them come out. It's worked great the way I've been doing it. And try to do them a little bit uniform. It takes a little bit of force, not too much. Just get something solid. And we're good to go. And now you're crimped up, pimped up. Now take off the hardware. So the issue that I run into is they told me it's a 1/4 inch size hole to get this through a 2 inch by 2 inch post. That was a lie. It needs a little bit more length so that you can grab this little flattened area with a tool to tighten. But they didn't do that. So it doesn't even go full 2 inches through. It's exactly 2 inches, which is kind of BS. So what I ended up having to do is taking a step bit and then drilling out my holes a little bit bigger. So that's what I'm gonna do right now. And you only have to do it on the inside one because the outside can stay the same diameter. You're just trying to get this portion here through the hole. Alright, so now you know it goes all the way through. So you put your washer on first, then you put your nut. You don't have to keep tightening the nut, you need to stop it where you want. And then you put your acorn nut on after that. So that's going to just at least hold it in place so that you can take it and you can measure how far you need to go and then cut it. Once you get one, just remember that length and then you can cut all your strands and then go from there. Stretch it by hand and then think about where that swage is going to go. Think about how long it is, you know what I mean? So maybe you undo the hardware first, just trying to help you with some ideas. Since it's tightened on this other side, mark where you want it to go. Just don't go too short. I have to use big 3/16 aluminum ferrules when I do the actual cable system itself and turnbuckles, so I'm going to definitely double or triple down on the crimping. Spin it in the direction that the wire rope is going. That's what happens. Yeah, when you get frayed edges, it does suck. I'll tell you that much. I'm gonna try to keep it as straight as I can. I've noticed if you have any kind of an angle, it might screw up on you. See, like you don't want it to turn. I've slipped the swage on the cable. Got plenty of space. Take my swaging tool, get it lined up. Make sure you're somewhat close to the other one. So washer, nut. And you can always loosen the other side to give yourself more material. If you only had a certain amount of cable, like I have right now, like I only bought, I think it's 40 feet to do this gate. If you can, look for specialty companies in your city or town that sell like mining equipment and industrial equipment. And typically, even if you don't have an account with them, they'll let you buy from them, even small amounts, which they did for me. Just save yourself some money. I mean, I bought 600 feet of this cable for, I think it was like $127, and it's 3/16 galvanized. And I think for the stainless steel, it was only like 10 cents more per linear foot. So do some research, ask around, because not a lot of people will advertise all the products that they have in your city or town. And so the best thing to do is ask some old timers, ask some ranchers, farmers, typically, or engineers, guys that know exactly what's available around you. Save yourself some coin, because otherwise you're not going to make a lot of profit. When summer comes, that cable's going to expand and it's going to droop. When winter comes, it's going to tighten. So just make sure you think about that while you're doing this. Give it a little extra wiggle room. And so I'm going to go ahead and spare you the rest of this, and I'll show you the finished product.